Hi everyone, I'm Lee Pacchia and you are watching The Business of Law, the only web TV show focusing on the challenges and the opportunities facing the legal profession. We're doing a deep dive into the litigation space today, and I'm happy to say we're joined by two of the best in the business. Sullivan and Cromwell's Karen Seymour and Rick Pepperman join us now. They're co-managing partners of the firm's litigation group. Welcome to you both. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks, Lee.
So Karen, let's start off with you. You focus mostly on investigations. Why don't you kick us off here? Your practice got really busy in the midst of the credit crisis. As that episode moves further and further back in the rearview mirror, where is your practice today? Are you still as busy as you were, say, 3 years ago?
We're actually busier now than we were 3 years ago.
Why is that?
It's funny. I mean, there have been such a push in the investigation space, not only in the U.S., but over the seas, so that you have multinational investigations are a huge part of our practice. They're very busy, and I think regulators abroad are as active as they've ever been. Here in the U.S., there's been no slowdown, not only after the financial crisis cases and those investigations are beginning to wind down. There's many other areas that are still picking up and full steam ahead for financial institutions, for IP clients, for healthcare. There's sort of no letting up from the Department of Justice, the DA's office, the state AGs. There's a lot of regulators.
So you guys are still accelerating going into 2015. That's remarkable.
We are still very, very busy at I would say at a high water mark in terms of the investigations.
Rick, you focus mostly on commercial litigation. As we close the books on 2014, what do you make of the year and what do you expect for next?
Well, you know, the trends we're seeing in commercial litigation are really the same as Karen just described in investigations, and they're related. I think all of the large government investigations that have occurred over the last 4 or 5 years following the financial crisis, upon the conclusion of those investigations, have generated very large civil litigation. And you know, that can take the form of class action litigation, shareholder litigation, really any different variety. And one of the things that we've been successful at doing is, after Karen and her colleagues handled the investigations, to try then for the client to do the civil litigation that follows. You know, our 2014 was busier than 2013, and I see that trend continuing forward into next year.
Karen, when we look out at 2015, do you see any particular trends developing in the investigations and white-collar space specifically that aren't on people's radars as we talk today?
Well, I don't know if they're on people's radars. I would hope that they are, but you know, one of the biggest ways that we get new matters is through whistleblowers, and you see increased awards to whistleblowers, record numbers of whistleblowers coming out and referring matters not only to the SEC but to the Department of Justice and state and local regulators and law enforcement as well. So that kicks up a lot of new investigations. We're also seeing a lot of attention in the financial institution space on AML, not only the sanctions cases, but AML and BSA compliance is a very, very big issue for us. So that's another one. The FCPA space, so corruption worldwide, is one that, again, is very prone to whistleblower complaints, so we have a lot of activity in that space as well. On the civil litigation side, as Rick was saying, I'll turn to him, but there are these sort of follow-on cases that come after there's a big resolution and a big settlement. There's going to be a derivative litigation that will ask, you know, where were the directors? How could they have allowed this conduct to have gone on? Right.
And I think another trend you've seen in civil litigation is that, you know, the lawsuits have tended to be of a much larger scope. You know, litigation that oftentimes would last, 1, 2, 3 years. A lot of the civil litigation that we've been handling over the last 4 or 5 years are 3, 4, 5, 6 year matters. Just that the magnitude and the scope of them have increased significantly. And the cost, yeah.
And Lee, I think another area there that's picking up for us as M&A work is increasing, and there's more of it. We're going to be seeing, we think, more M&A litigation going forward. You know, when the markets were not as active, that wasn't as busy, but I think we're going to see more of that.
I think we're seeing also more antitrust litigation now and over the last couple of years than we did the years before that. Again, as the as the market has picked up, you've seen an increase in the antitrust litigation.
What's driving that? I mean, antitrust was, I don't want to say dormant, but it was quiet for a long period of time, and now all of a sudden we're starting to see more of these actions. Any thoughts as to what might be driving this trend?
You know, I don't know. I think if you look back over, you know, the 80s, the 90s, and to date, as the economy starts to improve and picks up, you tend to see more antitrust litigation. You know, both in terms of civil litigation and on the government enforcement side. You know, it tends to come in waves, and I think we're seeing a wave forming there now.
And the rate trading investigations on the antitrust side are huge. So you see the LIBOR cases start to be resolved, and then there's FX investigations, ISDA-FIX investigations. So each, you know, regrettably, there appears to be a whole group of these kinds of trading opportunities that may have been abused, and the Department of Justice is very actively pursuing each of those.
Switching gears here, I'm always interested in talking to people who run litigation groups. People who are running transactional departments in law firms tend to look to market indicators, say moves in interest rates, to gauge what demand is going to be like for their practice looking down the road. How do you do that with litigation? Is it possible?
It's very tough. As I was saying before, you know, our matters at Sullivan Cromwell tend to be large, and they tend to extend over multiple years. So it's not really useful oftentimes to focus on month-to-month fluctuations. You have to look at the business over more of a 6, 12, 18-month time frame. What I try to do is I try to look at the matters that we have and see where they are in the cycle. Are they at the beginning of the cycle or at the end of the cycle? And try to, you know, prevent a situation where we have several large matters that a lot of people are working on that are all concluding at around the same time. You know, the only thing we really can do in terms of economic trends is sort of try to think ahead of, you know, where the market's going, and, you know, make sure we have the people in place to handle those matters. I mean, a couple of things that we're looking at now. You know, as M&A activity picks up, as Karen says, you know, we'll focus more on M&A litigation than we have over the previous years. And also we'll focus more on the antitrust clearance work in connection with deals. You know, something that when there aren't very many deals, you know, the antitrust clearance work really dries up.
We've spoken to a lot of people in the legal tech space that have talked about the future of litigation and law. Some are of the mind that years from now, litigators are going to know their clients' businesses almost better than the clients do themselves, and look out on the litigation horizon and try to predict what issues are going to come up, and then prospectively advise them of these issues almost before they happen. What are your thoughts on sentiments like these? Are they on the right track? Is something like this going to happen in litigation?
Personally, I don't know that it would definitely happen so you can predict for every client, but frankly, it's a lot of the model that we have at Sullivan Cromwell, where for our corporate clients, our institutional clients, we work hand in hand with our corporate partners to get to know that client very well. And as you get to know a client very well and you stay abreast of trends, whether it's in the regulatory framework or the civil framework, you can anticipate some lawsuits. So there's a lot of Me Too litigation, a lot of Me Too investigations out there. So to a degree, you can predict, warn, and hopefully prevent some of the litigation that might be there.
Yeah, I mean, I think one trend that I've seen recently is, you know, I think if you go back 20 years, clients used a much smaller number of law firms, and then there was a trend to expand the number of outside law firms that clients use. I think that trend's reversing, and in commercial litigation, clients are tending to centralize their business on a smaller number of law firms and trying to make an investment with those firms and have the firms make an investment with them to learn their business and engage in more day-to-day counseling and try to prevent problems before they arise.
Fascinating stuff. Rick, Karen, thank you for stopping by.
Thank you, Lee.
My pleasure. Thank you.
That's Rick Pepperman and Karen Seymour from Sullivan Cromwell. If you'd like to see more of the stuff we're working on, be sure to go check us out online. You can find us at mimesiswebtv.com. You can also find us on YouTube and Twitter. I'm Lee Pacchia. Thanks for watching.